Our next obvious step for creating our moving block is to make the block move. So what I'm going to do is start off here inside Kismet, and we've got this great system already in place that is taking our block, assigning it to some variables, setting up the initial camera, and then setting some initial states. So what I'm going to do is grab all of this. We're going to put in a comment called moving block initial state, and I'll put a slash there, and I'll put camera, because it's also handling the camera. Okay, now the next thing I want to handle is going to be our different moves. Now we're going to be able to move this block in all four of the compass rose directions, up, down, left, and right, or north, south, east, west, depending on how you want to look at it. Now, of course, in our case, we're really only going to allow the block to move downward, and that's actually defined here, where we go ahead and take B can move up, left, and right. We set all those to false, and we only set B can move down to true, so just keep that in mind. Now, the first thing we're going to do to make this block move is create 4 remote events to move the thing. So let's right-click, come down to New Event, and these will just be regular remote events. I'll set the first one to a name of Move Up. Now let's make some duplicates. So Control-C, Control-V, Control-V, Control-V. So there's 3 copies, 4 in total, and we'll just stack them up nicely. And we'll take the second one and we'll name it Move Down. Actually, let's just put down. And the next one will be Move Left. And the next one will be Move Right. Alright, so we have our 4 events all set up. Now the next thing we're going to do is as soon as these events fire, we're going to check and make sure that the block is allowed to move in each corresponding direction. So let's right-click, create a new condition, comparison, compare bool, and we'll actually be comparing against these B can move variables. So for now, let's just copy off our compare bool, make a total of 4 copies, 1 for each one of these events, and we'll just plug them all straight in. Now up here we already have our B can move up, down, left, and right named variables. Just go ahead and make a copy of all those. And we'll attach move up to this first compare bool that's associated with the move up remote event, down with down, and so on. Alright, so the events fire, the first thing we're doing is we're checking to see if we're allowed to move. If we are, then we need to go ahead and move the block. So let's go ahead and set up a matinee. I'm going to close up Kismet for a moment, make sure that I have the inter-backer block selected, and then we will jump back into Kismet. I'll right-click and create a new matinee. Now a couple of things we need to check on this. First off, check no reset on rewind, and check rewind on play. Now I'm also going to go ahead and give this an object comment. So let's grab the object comment. We'll call this one move up. And I'm going to leave some room between our event, because there's actually some stuff we're going to put in the middle. Now if you don't do that at the outset, of course you can move it later, but this is just to remind you we've got some stuff coming up. Now let's open up Matinee. I'm going to right click, create a new empty group, which I will call moving block. Into this, I'm going to go ahead and put in a movement track. And let's take the entire length of the matinee and pull it down to just 2 seconds. Okay, now in the background, I'll close down Kismet. And the first thing we're doing is we're moving up. So we've got our first keyframe in place. Let's slide over to 2 seconds and press enter. And I want to slide the block up because that's what our first slide is supposed to do. I want to move this 256 units. Now check this out. If you set your drag grid to 256 units, this becomes very, very easy. So, also, check my camera alignment, because that's how we're going to determine what up is. Notice the orientation of our camera. In fact, let me go ahead and rotate around. You'll see that our camera is positioned such that, there we go, such that this would be up. So our player would start, run around the corner. So we're going to slide technically negative in the x-axis, and that's what we're going to define as up. So just make sure that that's what you've got. Now, I need to make sure that that does get assigned to key 1. So we'll slide that up like so, and there we go. So we can test that just by scrubbing the time slider, and there we go. Our block is moving up. Now let's close out of Matinee. Let's jump back into Kismet, and we'll connect this over. So true on our compare bool, if our block can move up, then we move it up. It's pretty straightforward. Now, we're going to grab that Matinee as well as the 2 variables connected into it, hit Control-C and Control-V and make a copy. Immediately, I'm going to select the Matinee and change its name to move down. Just for the object comment, we can go ahead and plug this into the true of our check to move the block downward. Let's open up Matinee, close out Kismet in the background, switch over to the second keyframe, so just click on key 2, and watch this. We're just going to slide it back to its original position and then slide it down. So now if we scrub, we're sliding from initial position, sliding downward. Alright, now we have to do that 2 more times, so let's go ahead and grab our Matinee as well as what's connected into it, hit Control-C, and this time I'll go a little bit faster. Let's go ahead and paste that in 2 times. Let's grab the object comment on the next one. This will be move left. The one down here will be move right. Connect these to the true of the compare booleans. And we'll start with move left. So let's grab that second keyframe. And we'll slide this guy back up to his original position and then move him left. And now the block is moving in that direction. Close out of Matinee, open up Kismet once more, grab move right, put Kismet away in the background, select our second keyframe, put the block in its original position, and then move it right. So we have 4 individual Matinees, each moving the block in its own corresponding direction. Pretty easy once you get done with it. Or I guess once you realize what we're actually doing, because you can't actually do this with just one Matinee. We've got to have a different one for each direction. Okay, so now we've got everything up to this point set up and working. The next thing we're going to do is close out that UI that we had that brings up the 4 green arrows. So let's right-click, go to New Action, UI Scenes, and Close Scene. This is going to connect to the true output of all of our compare bools. So if it was possible to move the block, we're immediately going to go ahead and close that UI scene. Now, how do we know which UI scene to close? Well, it was stored up here at the very end of our sequence in a block scene named variable. So we're going to copy that and paste that down here, like so. Now, the next thing we need to do is reset the camera. So I'm going to create... Actually, before we set the camera, the first thing we're going to do is set the move status. Essentially, our block has just moved. If we want to be able to move it again, or change its direction, or basically tell it, okay, you've moved, and now we don't want you to move anymore, we're going to need a set of events in place so that we can tell the block, after it's moved, that it can't move anymore. So we're going to right-click, create a new action, come down to Event, and choose Activate Remote Event, which we will call Set Move Status. Upon success of closing our scene, we will fire this off. Now, we haven't actually set up the event for this yet. We're just kind of laying down the groundwork. Alright, now, the next thing we're going to do is set up a system such that if the player is in the way of the moving block, they're going to get squished. This is real easy and real fun to set up. Let's right-click, go to New Action, Event, and we need an Attach to event. The purpose of this action is to take an existing event and attach it to a particular actor in the level. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the true output of our compare booleans and plug them all into this Attach to event. Now, who are we attaching? We're going to be attaching the interp actor. So let's close out of Kismet. We'll make sure the interp actor is selected. Back here inside Kismet, and we can create an object variable here, but we've already got that stored. If we scroll up here, remember we actually had our moving block So I'm going to hit Control-C and paste that in right here. Now, the cool thing about doing that is we're still leaving this nice and generic in case another moving block gets assigned. So if you've got a setup with multiple moving blocks, this will still work. Now, we just need the event that will check for a collision with the player or any other actor for that matter. So we're going to right-click, go to New Event. Actually, let me clean that up. So New Event, come down to Physics, and let's create a new mover. Now, a mover comes in with its very own matinee, but we don't need the matinee, so we're just going to delete that. What we're going to do is make use of this hit actor output, because that's all it does, is it just checks to see if we've hit an actor. We're going to take the event of our attached to event, plug it into this mover, so most of the work is done. Now all we have to do is take this hit actor and use this to modify the health of some object. So we'll right click, go to New Action, Actor, and choose Modify Health. And we'll set some really cool settings. So we're going to set the amount to 1,000. So we're just really blasting whatever it is we hit. And we'll set UT damage type to Space Death, which will cause our little robot to explode. Now we're going to plug this from hit actor to the input, and we need to feed it a target. The easiest way to do this is to grab the actor that was hit from our actual mover. So we'll create a new blank object variable. Now notice this connects upward a little bit, but it's actually reaching over to actor hit. If you try to drag a wire from it, you'll see that. And we'll make that the target as well. So whatever gets hit is going to be fed over to modify health, and it's going to lose a whole lot of health. Now we can test this out, but I will warn you, up to this point we have not established anything for set move status, so we will get errors when we try that. But let's close out of Kismet. And I'm going to spawn us right here on the underside of the block. So we'll choose play from here. Now let's run up to the block, and we get a transition. Our UI comes up, let's hit down, and we get smashed. But the good news is we did get the block out of our way. Okay, so that's going to wrap things up for this video. Be sure to save your level, and then we will continue from here.
We'll be right back.